I knew it was over the moment she smiled at the waiter like I wasn't there. Not a polite smile. Not the kind you give someone who's doing their job. This was the smile she used to give me, back when I still mattered. Back when my name wasn't just a signature on checks that kept her world spinning. We were sitting in Marcello's, this trendy bistro on Main Street where everyone who thinks they're someone goes to be seen. The kind of place with exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs hanging from copper pipes, and menu prices that require you to pretend $28 for pasta is completely reasonable. Maris had picked it. She always picked these places now. I watched her across the table, her fingers dancing over her phone screen while she barely touched her food. She'd ordered the most expensive thing, pan-seared halibut with truffle butter, and spent the entire meal checking notifications. Every few minutes her face would light up with that secret smile, the one that used to be mine. "Evan," she said, not looking up, "did you remember to transfer money for the gala tickets?" I did. And the dress deposit. That too. Good. She finally glanced at me, and there was nothing behind her eyes, just assessment, like I was a task on a checklist. "You know how important this event is for my career." I nodded. I'd heard about the charity gala for 3 months straight. How the hospital board would be there, how connections would be made, how this was her moment to shine in front of people who actually mattered. The implication was clear. I was not one of those people. A group of women entered the restaurant, and Maris's posture changed instantly. She sat straighter, tucked her hair behind her ear, transformed into someone performing. One of them waved, and Maris waved back with manufactured enthusiasm. "Work people," she murmured to me, but loud enough for them to hear. Then louder, "Just catching a quick dinner before the planning meeting." Except there was no planning meeting. I knew because I paid for the phone plan, and I'd checked the calendar synced to our shared account. Tonight was marked free evening. The waiter appeared, a young guy with the kind of eager professionalism that small-town restaurants demand. He asked if we needed anything else, and Maris gave him that smile again, the one I used to own. "We're fine," she said. Then, as he reached for the bill folder, "Oh, actually, please split the bill. We're not really together." The restaurant didn't go quiet. Life isn't a movie. But I felt the shift, the waiter's pause, the slight widening of his eyes, the way he looked at me, waiting for me to argue, to correct her, to explain that yes, we were together, we'd been together for 6 years, and what the hell was she talking about? I didn't do any of that. "Sure," I said. I nodded once, calm as a lake before the ice cracks. "Split it." Maris's smile flickered. Just for a second. She'd wanted something from me, anger maybe, or hurt, or one of those public scenes she could later describe to her friends as proof I was difficult, unstable, not worth the investment. Instead, I gave her nothing. The waiter divided the check with uncomfortable precision. I paid my half in cash, exact change, and stood up while Maris was still fumbling with her card. "I need some air," I said. "Evan—" But I was already walking, past the exposed brick, past the Edison bulbs, past the table where her work people sat, watching with poorly disguised curiosity. I pushed through the door into the October night, and the cold hit my face like a reminder that I was still alive, still capable of feeling something. The street was busy. Wednesday evening in a New England town that tries very hard to be charming. Couples strolling, college students laughing too loud, cars circling for parking spots that didn't exist. I stood on the sidewalk and did one quiet thing. I took out my phone and opened my banking app. 3 taps. Transfer all shared funds from our joint account into my personal savings. Another 2 taps. Cancel the auto pay on the credit card I'd opened for her expenses. One more. Disable access to my direct deposit. 20 seconds. That's all it took to turn off the machine that funded her performance. My phone buzzed immediately, the bank's confirmation notifications. Then another buzz. A text from Maris's number. "Where did you go?" I didn't respond. I just stood there on Main Street, watching my breath turn to fog in the lamplight, and felt something settle inside me. Not rage, not even sadness, just clarity. Across the street, parked under a broken streetlight, I noticed a car I recognized. A silver Audi with dealer plates and one of those obnoxious vanity frames that read, "Living My Best Life," Graham Ketter's car. I knew because he'd shown it off at last year's hospital fundraiser, cornering anyone who'd listen to talk about the lease deal he'd negotiated, the hybrid engine, the premium sound system. Graham was a contractor who'd somehow turned hospital renovation bids into a second career as a semi-professional networker, the kind of guy who called everyone buddy and had business cards in 3 different jacket pockets. Maris had mentioned him a few times, always casually, always in passing. Graham says the new wing is behind schedule. Graham thinks the board is reconsidering the budget. Graham invited us to his lake house, but I said no because you hate those kinds of things. I'd never said I hated those kinds of things. I watched the Audi for a long minute, then looked back at Marcello's entrance. Through the window I could see Maris at our table, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing in that frustrated way she had when things didn't go according to plan. Behind me, the door opened. I didn't turn. I knew her footsteps by now, quick, sharp, always in a hurry to get to the next thing. "Evan, what is your problem?" I turned slowly. She stood there in her designer coat, the one I'd bought her for her birthday, looking at me like I'd committed some unforgivable social crime. "No problem," I said. "You just walked out, in front of everyone. You told the waiter we're not together. I figured I didn't need to stay." Her face did something complicated. Guilt, maybe. Or just annoyance that I wasn't following the script. "I didn't mean it like that. We've been having issues and I thought—" "What issues?" She blinked. "What? What issues have we been having, Maris?" "You know what I mean. We barely talk anymore. You're always working. I'm always working. We're just coasting." I nodded. Okay. She looked thrown. "That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something, anything. You're acting weird." I smiled. Not the kind of smile that reaches your eyes, the kind that stays on your lips and goes nowhere else. "I'm just tired. You're right. We've been coasting. Maybe we need some space to figure things out." She stared at me, and I watched her try to read what was happening. She'd expected resistance, an argument, a plea for couples therapy or a romantic gesture or some desperate attempt to prove I still cared. Instead, I was agreeing with her, and that made her nervous. "Fine," she said finally. "Space. Good." "Good," I echoed. She turned and walked back toward the restaurant, but she didn't go inside. Instead, she veered left, toward the side street where the parking garage entrance waited like an open mouth. I stayed where I was, counting to 30 in my head. Then I walked to my car, a 7-year-old Honda that embarrassed her at every valet stand, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. 2 minutes later, the silver Audi pulled out from under the broken streetlight and turned toward the garage. I watched it disappear around the corner. Then I watched Maris walk out from Marcello's, not toward the garage where she'd parked her car this morning, but in the opposite direction. Toward the river walk, toward the old part of town where the brick buildings lean into each other and the streetlights are just decorative. I started my engine, and I followed. The split bill humiliation was still a warm coal in my chest, but I kept my hands steady on the wheel. Following someone in a small town isn't like the movies. There's no dramatic chase through back alleys. There's just traffic lights that take forever, a delivery truck blocking your view, and the constant paranoia that she'll glance in her rearview mirror and recognize your headlights. Maris walked fast, her phone glowing in her hand. She didn't look back. Why would she? In her world, I'd already been dismissed, filed away. The waiter had split the bill, and with it, whatever thread still connected us. She crossed River Street and disappeared down the footpath that runs along the water. I couldn't follow by car, so I parked in a loading zone outside the old textile mill, now condos for people who like the aesthetic of industrial decay without the actual decay, and got out. The air smelled like wet leaves and something metallic. The river, probably. It always smelled like rust and old rain down here. The path was lined with those fake antique lampposts the town installed to make everything look like a movie set, but half of them were burned out. Light. Dark. Light. Dark. I kept my distance, 50 feet back, just another person taking an evening walk. Except I wasn't walking. I was hunting. Maris stopped at the footbridge, the one everyone calls the Iron Maiden because it's been under repair for 3 years and still looks like it's one winter away from collapse. She leaned against the railing, still on her phone, and I ducked behind a bench to watch. A minute passed, then 2. Then a figure appeared from the opposite direction, Graham Ketter. Even from 50 feet away, I recognized his walk, that confident stride of a man who'd never been told no in his life. He wore a blazer over jeans, which somehow managed to look both casual and expensive. His hair was the kind of perfectly messy that takes product and time. They didn't hug. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they stood close, talking in low voices, and Maris laughed at something he said. Not her polite laugh, not her professional laugh, the real one, the one I used to hear. I stayed behind the bench and took out my phone. Not to record, that felt pathetic and legally questionable, just to check the time. 8:42. I made a mental note. Time, place, witnesses if I needed them. The couple jogging past, the old man walking his terrier. They talked for maybe 5 minutes, then Graham gestured toward the parking garage across from the bridge, the one that services the hospital and the medical plaza. Maris nodded, and they walked together, not touching but close enough that their arms almost brushed. I waited until they disappeared into the concrete mouth of the garage. Then I followed. Inside, the air was colder. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. The place smelled like motor oil and brake dust. Nothing says romance like a parking garage, I thought, and the absurdity of it almost made me laugh. I stayed on the ground level listening. Their voices echoed from somewhere above, 2nd floor, maybe 3rd. I couldn't hear words, just the rise and fall of conversation. Then laughter. Then silence. I climbed the stairs slowly, carefully, my footsteps absorbed by the concrete. On the 2nd level, I saw them. They were standing next to a black SUV with a hospital parking permit hanging from the rearview mirror. Graham's hand was on Maris's waist. Her hand was on his chest. I stopped walking. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt something colder. Confirmation. Proof. The satisfaction of knowing I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't imagining things. They kissed, quick and careful, like people who'd done this before. Then Graham opened the SUV door, and Maris climbed inside. I turned and walked back down the stairs before I could see anything else. Outside, I stood next to my car and stared at the garage entrance. My phone buzzed. A text from Maris. Stopping by the office to grab some files. Don't wait up. The office. Right. I drove home through streets that felt narrower than they had an hour ago. Our apartment was in one of those renovated Victorians on Elm Street. High ceilings, original hardwood floors, rent that made me wince every month. Maris had picked it. We need to live somewhere that reflects who we are, she'd said. Who we are. As if I'd had any say in that. Inside, the place was dark and quiet. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened a browser. First, I checked our shared calendar, the one we'd set up 2 years ago when we were still pretending to coordinate our lives. Maris had stopped updating her side months ago, but the old entries were still there. I scrolled back through the past 3 months. September 19th. Volunteer meeting, 7 p.m. September 26th. Volunteer meeting, 7 p.m. October 3rd. Volunteer meeting, 7 p.m. Every Wednesday. Same time, same note. I opened a new tab and logged into our phone account, the family plan I paid for. Call logs, text logs, data usage. Maris's line showed a recurring number she'd contacted 47 times in the past month. I didn't recognize it. I ran it through a reverse lookup. Graham Ketter. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. For a long time, I just sat there, letting the pieces fall into place. Then I opened a new document and started a timeline. Dates, times, locations, contradictions. I didn't know what I was building yet, but I knew I needed it to be airtight. My phone rang. Jonas Pike. I answered. "Hey. You okay?" His voice was rough, familiar. We'd known each other since college, back when I thought I'd end up in software development and he thought he'd end up as a public defender. Instead, I ended up in hospital IT, and he ended up running a small security consulting firm that mostly dealt with corporate surveillance systems. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" "You texted me earlier. I need a favor. Tonight." Then nothing. I'd forgotten about that. The text I'd sent from outside Marcello's right after I'd turned off the money. "I need you to run a background check," I said. Quietly. No paper trail. "On who?" "Graham Ketter." Silence. Then, "The hospital contractor?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I want to know who he really works for, who pays him, who he owes, who would care if he suddenly became a liability." More silence. I could hear Jonas thinking, weighing whether to ask the next question. He didn't. That's why we were still friends. "I'll see what I can find," he said. "Give me a couple days." "Thanks." "Evan?" "Yeah?" "Don't do anything stupid." I almost laughed. "I won't." I hung up and stared at the timeline on my screen. Then I added one more entry. October 15th. The gala. The event Maris had been obsessing over for months. The one where she'd need me to play the supportive partner. The one where Graham would be there as a sponsor. I saved the document and closed my laptop. Then I sat in the dark and waited for my girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend, technically, though neither of us had said it out loud yet, to come home smelling like someone else's cologne. She walked in at 11:30. I was still sitting at the kitchen table. "You're up," she said, startled. "Couldn't sleep." She dropped her bag on the counter. "I told you not to wait up." "I wasn't waiting, just thinking." She studied me for a moment, and I saw the calculation behind her eyes, trying to figure out if I knew, if I suspected, if I was about to make her life difficult. "Thinking about what?" she asked carefully. "The gala. You said I need to be there, right?" Her shoulders relaxed. "Right. It's important." "Then I'll be there." She smiled. Relieved. "Good. Thank you." She kissed my forehead, quick, perfunctory, the way you'd pet a dog, and disappeared into the bedroom. I stayed at the table and opened my laptop again. One more entry in the timeline. October 15th. Gala, Endgame. My phone buzzed. Jonas. "You're not going to like who Graham really works for." I didn't need a private investigator. I needed math. Jonas sent me the file at 6 in the morning. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee and a spreadsheet that was starting to look like a conspiracy board, the kind you see in movies where the detective has finally lost it. Except I hadn't lost anything. I was finding it, piece by piece. Graham's business was officially called Ketter Construction Solutions. According to his website, which featured stock photos of hard hats and blueprints and smiling contractors who definitely didn't work for him, he specialized in healthcare facility renovations and infrastructure modernization. What Jonas found was more interesting. Graham's company had won 4 contracts with the hospital in the past 18 months. Total value, $1.2 million. Not huge, but significant for a firm with 3 employees and a P.O. box address. The bids had all been approved by the hospital's facilities committee, a group that included Maris's direct supervisor and 2 board members. Maris wasn't on the committee, but she coordinated scheduling, managed documentation, and had access to the proposal review system. She was the gatekeeper. Jonas's notes were clinical. Conflict of interest, potential. No evidence of direct collusion. However, timing of approvals correlates with documented communication between M. Vale and G. Ketter. Documented communication. That was Jonas speak for, "I pulled phone records, and you're not going to like what you see." I opened the attached file. Call logs going back 6 months. Text message metadata. No actual content, just timestamps and duration. Graham and Maris had been in contact an average of 12 times per week since April. The month she'd started complaining we were coasting. I cross-referenced the calls with our shared calendar. Every volunteer meeting corresponded to a cluster of texts between Graham and Maris. Every working late night showed a phone call lasting over an hour. I added it to my spreadsheet. Dates, times, duration, location, based on cell tower data Jonas had included. Most calls originated from the hospital area, some from the parking garage, 3 from an address outside town I didn't recognize. I opened Google Maps and plugged in the coordinates, a rental property, one of those year-round lake houses that pretends to be rustic, but costs $300 a night on Airbnb. The listing photos showed a stone fireplace, a deck overlooking water, and a bed with too many decorative pillows. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I went back to the spreadsheet and added another column, expenses. I pulled up our shared credit card statement, the one I'd just canceled. Maris had been using it more frequently over the past 3 months. Dinners I didn't attend, rides I didn't take, a wine delivery to an address that wasn't ours. I pulled up our bank account next, direct deposits, withdrawals, auto-pays I'd set up to make life easier, Maris's gym membership, her car insurance, the subscription boxes she loved, the streaming services she couldn't live without, all paid from my account, all part of the machine that kept her life spinning. I'd turned it off last night. By now, she'd probably noticed. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Why is my gym card declining? I stared at the message. No greeting. No question about whether I was okay after last night. Just immediate panic that her access to hot yoga and overpriced smoothies had been interrupted. I typed back, "Bank flagged suspicious activity. Temporarily locked the account. Should be resolved soon." A lie, but a useful one. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. How long? Few days. Maybe a week. Evan, the gala is in 10 days. I need that card active. I'll call them today. The dots stopped. No, thank you. No, is everything okay with us? Just silence, once she got what she needed. I put the phone down and went back to work. By afternoon, I had a document that would make an accountant weep with joy. Every piece of evidence was cross-referenced, time-stamped, and sourced. I had call logs that showed patterns, expenses that told stories, calendar entries that didn't match reality. I had proof Maris was lying, but proof wasn't enough. I needed leverage. I called Jonas. "You find anything on Graham's sponsors?" "Yeah." He sounded tired. "Guy's got his hands in a lot of pockets. Most of his funding comes from medical equipment suppliers looking to break into the regional market. They use him as a middleman. He gets the contracts. They provide the materials. Everyone makes money." "Who's his biggest client?" "Company called Stanton Medical Solutions. They supply imaging equipment, surgical tools, that kind of thing. Based in Boston, but they've been trying to expand into New Hampshire and Maine. Graham's been their guy for the hospital contracts." "And if Graham suddenly became a liability?" Jonas paused. "Stanton's a family business. Old money, old reputation. They don't mess around with scandal. If Graham got caught in something messy, they'd drop him before the story even hit the news." "Good to know." "Evan, What are you planning? Nothing, stupid. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now. I hung up and stared at my spreadsheet. Then I opened a new tab and started researching hospital ethics policies, conflict of interest clauses, vendor relationships, disclosure requirements. It took an hour, but I found what I needed. The hospital had a strict policy requiring staff to report any personal relationships with contractors. Failure to disclose was grounds for review and potential termination. Maris hadn't disclosed anything. I saved the policy document and added it to my growing file. Then I did something that felt petty but necessary. I tested Maris one more time. I texted, "Hey, did you grab dinner last night after the office? Want to try that new Thai place tonight?" 30 seconds later, I ate at the office. Just a salad from the cafeteria. Thai sounds good, though. I opened my credit card app. Our shared card, the one I'd canceled, but that still showed historical transactions. Last night, 8:53 p.m., a charge of $73 at an Italian restaurant I'd never heard of. Reservation for 2. I screenshotted it, added it to the file. My phone rang. Maris. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hey." "The bank called," she said. Her voice was tight. "They said the account wasn't flagged. They said you manually moved the funds and canceled the card." Silence. "Evan, what the hell is going on?" I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "I consolidated some accounts. We've been talking about cutting expenses, remember? This is part of that. You didn't tell me. You were busy. I didn't want to bother you." "Evan." Her voice dropped into that dangerous register, the one she used when she was about to deliver an ultimatum. "I need access to that account. Now. I'll set up a new card. Should be here in 3 to 5 business days." 3 to 5? Evan, the gala is in 10 days. I have expenses, I have deposits, I know. I'll take care of it. "You'll take care of it? She stopped herself. I could hear her breathing, trying to decide whether to escalate or de-escalate. "We need to talk. Tonight." "Okay. Okay? That's all you're going to say?" "What do you want me to say, Maris?" She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, and for the first time in 6 years I felt something shift inside me. Not love, not even anger, just clarity. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. My phone buzzed. Jonas again. "You're not going to like who Graham really works for." I smiled. "I already know. But tell me anyway." The thing about working in a hospital is that everyone knows everyone's business. I showed up to work the next morning like nothing had changed. Swiped my badge at the vendor entrance, grabbed coffee from the break room, and sat down at my desk in the IT contractor annex. My job was system security, making sure the hospital's network didn't get hacked, auditing access logs, running compliance checks. Boring work, but useful work, especially when you're trying to build a case. The morning was quiet until Talia Briggs showed up. Talia was Maris's best friend, which meant she was also my least favorite person in the building. She worked in hospital PR, managing social media, coordinating press releases, handling the charity events that made rich people feel good about being rich. She was the kind of person who smiled with all her teeth and none of her eyes. She appeared at my desk with a coffee cup that probably cost more than my lunch. "Evan, I feel like I never see you anymore." I looked up from my monitor. "Hey, Talia. Maris said you two are coming to the gala. That's so exciting. It's going to be the event of the season." "Yeah, wouldn't miss it." She leaned against my desk, too close, her perfume sharp enough to cut glass. "You know, Graham Ketter is sponsoring one of the tables. Have you met him? He's amazing. Such a good guy. Really passionate about healthcare infrastructure." I kept my face neutral. "We've met." "Oh, good. Maris talks about him all the time. He's been so helpful with the renovation projects, and he's been so generous with the charity board. Did you know he donated $20,000 to the children's wing last year?" I didn't. "Well, he did. He's just one of those people who really cares, you know." I nodded slowly. "Sounds like a great guy." Talia's smile widened. He really is. And I think it's so nice that Maris has someone like him to work with. She's been so stressed lately. It's good she has support. Support. Right. Well, I said, I'm glad she has people she can count on. Talia lingered for another minute, fishing for something. I wasn't sure what, then drifted away toward the elevators. I watched her go, then opened an internal email search. One of the perks of working in IT is that you have legitimate reasons to audit email traffic. Security checks, compliance reviews, making sure nobody's downloading suspicious files or clicking phishing links. I ran a search for Graham Ketter's name in the hospital's communication logs. 17 results. Most were routine contract correspondence, but 3 stood out. Emails from Maris's account to Graham, forwarded through personal addresses instead of hospital servers. I couldn't open them. That would cross a legal line I wasn't ready to cross yet. But I could see the metadata, timestamps, subject lines, file attachments. One subject line, updated proposal timeline, confidential. Another, revised budget discussion, off the record. I screenshotted the metadata and added it to my file. Then I did something that felt risky but necessary. I logged into the hospital's scheduling system and pulled Graham's access records. Every contractor was issued a temporary badge with restricted hours and locations. Graham's badge showed regular activity in the administrative wing, Maris's floor, outside normal business hours. 11 visits in the past 2 months, all after 7 p.m., all logged as facility inspections. I saved the report. My phone buzzed. Jonas. You free for lunch? Yeah. Where? Riverside Diner. 30 minutes. Jonas was already in a booth when I arrived, looking like a man who hadn't slept in 2 days. He was in his 40s, graying at the temples, with the kind of face that made you think he'd seen things he wished he could forget. He probably had. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Back at you. He pushed a manila folder across the table. Here's what you asked for. I opened it. Inside were printouts of corporate filings, business licenses, financial disclosures, and a background check on Graham Ketter. Graham's clean on paper, Jonas said. No arrests, no lawsuits, but dig a little deeper, and he's not as golden as he looks. How so? His company is hemorrhaging money. 3 of his last 5 projects went over budget. He's been covering losses with new contracts, basically a Ponzi scheme without the fraud charges. Stanton Medical is keeping him afloat, but if they pull out, he's done. And if he loses his reputation? Jonas leaned back. Then he loses Stanton. And if he loses Stanton, his business collapses in about 6 weeks. I stared at the file. What would it take to make Stanton drop him? Scandal. Anything that makes them look bad by association. Ethical violations, personal misconduct, conflict of interest. These old money companies don't play games. One whiff of impropriety, and they'll cut ties so fast your head'll spin. I nodded slowly. Good to know. Jonas studied me. You're really doing this. I'm not doing anything. I'm just gathering information. Evan. He said my name like a warning. This town talks. You start making moves, people are gonna notice. And Maris has friends. I know. Friends who'll protect her. I know that too. Jonas sighed. Just don't do anything that lands you in a cell or a hospital bed. I won't. He didn't look convinced. I spent the afternoon back at my desk, pretending to work while my mind churned through strategies. By 4 o'clock, I had a plan forming. Not complete, not foolproof, but clear enough to see the shape of it. Then my phone buzzed with a notification I hadn't expected. Maris had added me to a public Facebook event, an Evening of Hope annual charity gala. My name was listed under her RSVP as +1. I clicked through to the event page, photos of last year's gala, smiling faces in tuxedos and cocktail dresses, a banner that read, "Supporting healthcare excellence in our community." And there, In the sponsor list was Graham Ketter's name. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I texted Jonas. I want them to lose everything without me touching the knife. 3 dots. Then, that's the spirit. That night, Maris came home late again. I was in the living room, laptop open, pretending to watch TV. We need to talk, she said. Okay. She sat down across from me, her expression carefully composed. I don't know what's going on with you lately, but it needs to stop. The account thing. The weird attitude. The way you've been acting. I met her eyes. What way? Distant. Cold. Like you're somewhere else. Maybe I am. Her jaw tightened. Evan, if you have something to say, just say it. I could have said it. I could have laid out the evidence. The calls. The lies. The man she was meeting in parking garages while I paid for her life. Instead, I said, I think we need space. She blinked. What? Space. You were right the other night. We're coasting. Maybe we should take a break. Figure things out separately. A break. She said it like I'd suggested we burn the apartment down. You want to break up? I want space. There's a difference. Evan, I'll stay with Jonas for a while. Give you time to think. After the gala. I know that's important to you. She stared at me, and I watched her brain work through the angles. She couldn't argue. I wasn't angry. I wasn't demanding anything. I was just leaving. Fine, she said finally. If that's what you want. It's what we both want, I corrected gently. She stood up and walked to the bedroom without another word. I sat there in the flickering light of the TV and felt the pieces click into place. My phone buzzed. A notification from the event page. Maris Vale added you to the guest list. Table 7, sponsored by Graham Ketter. I smiled. Everything was falling into place. You don't start a fire with a match. You start it by removing the sprinklers. The next morning, I woke up early and began dismantling the infrastructure of our shared life. Quietly, methodically, like uninstalling malware from a corrupted system. First, utilities. Our apartment lease was in both names, but the electric, gas, and internet accounts were in mine. I called each company, explained I was moving out, and requested service cancellation, effective the 1st of next month. Will the other resident be taking over the accounts? The electric company rep asked. She'll need to set up her own, I said. I'm no longer responsible for the residents. Click. Confirmed. Next. Second. Subscriptions. Maris had gotten comfortable in a world where everything just worked. Her meal kit deliveries, her boutique gym membership, her skincare boxes, her premium streaming accounts, all billed to my credit card. I canceled them one by one. Each cancellation sent a confirmation email. Each email was a small cut. Nothing dramatic, nothing illegal. Just the natural consequence of me no longer funding someone else's lifestyle. Third, the car. Maris drove a leased Lexus. A graduation gift to herself, she'd called it, though I was the one who'd co-signed the lease when her credit wasn't quite good enough. I called the dealership and explained I wanted to be removed as a co-signer. You'll need the primary lessee's consent for that, they said. Then I'd like to request documentation showing I'm financially responsible. I may need it for legal purposes. They promised to send it within 3 business days. Fourth, documents. I spent an hour gathering everything important. Birth certificate, passport, social security card, tax returns, car title, insurance policies. Everything that proved I existed and owned what I owned. I put it all in a fireproof lockbox and stored it at Jonas's office. You're really leaving her, Jonas said, watching me stack files on his desk. I'm preparing to leave her. There's a difference. You got a lawyer yet? Not yet, but I have a consult scheduled for tomorrow. Jonas nodded. Smart. You want my advice? Always. Don't tell her anything. Don't give her warning. Don't try to be fair or noble. Just document everything and wait for the right moment. That's the plan. He looked at me for a long moment. You're different. Calmer. I'm focused. That's what worries me. The lawyer's office was in a restored colonial on the edge of downtown, the kind of place that charged $400 an hour and made you sign 3 different confidentiality agreements before the consultation even started. The lawyer's name was Patricia Nguyen, 50-something, sharp-eyed, with the air of someone who'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Mr. Slade," she said, shaking my hand, "what brings you here?" I laid it out. The affair, the financial entanglement, the professional conflict of interest, the lies. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in precise shorthand. When I finished, she set down her pen. "What outcome do you want?" "I want out, cleanly. And I want her to understand that actions have consequences." Consequences meaning? Her job, her reputation, her ability to keep pretending she's untouchable. Patricia nodded slowly. "I can help with the first part. The divorce, the financial separation. That's straightforward. The second part, consequences. That's murkier. You can't weaponize the legal system to punish someone. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me protect myself while I let the truth do its job." She studied me. "You have evidence?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the spreadsheet, the timeline, the call logs, the policy violations. She scrolled through it all, her expression unchanging. Then she handed the phone back. "This is good," she said. "Very good. If you file for divorce and cite these issues, you'll have leverage for a favorable settlement. But if you're planning something else, something public, I need to be clear. I can't advise you on that. Anything that edges into defamation, harassment, or interference with her employment is outside my scope." "I understand." That said, she leaned back in her chair. "If certain facts were to come to light through proper channels, HR complaints, ethics reviews, compliance audits, that would be a natural consequence of her choices, not yours." I met her eyes. Understood. Good. Now let's talk about asset protection. We spent the next hour going through financials, what I owned, what she owned, what we owned together. Patricia explained the process: filing, disclosure, negotiation, settlement. "How long?" I asked. "If it's uncontested, 3 to 6 months. If she fights, a year, maybe longer. And if I wait to file until after certain other events conclude?" Patricia's smile was thin. "Then you'd better have your evidence locked down tight." I left her office with a folder full of paperwork and a date circled on my calendar. October 16th, one day after the gala. That night, Maris came home smiling. Actually smiling. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "I picked up Thai food, your favorite." I looked up from my laptop. "Thanks." She set the containers on the coffee table and sat down next to me. Close, too close, the way she used to sit back when things were good. "I've been thinking," she said. "Maybe we've been too hard on each other. Maybe we just need to reconnect." I closed my laptop. Maybe. The gala's in a week. Let's use it as a fresh start. After that, we can talk. Really talk. Figure things out. She touched my arm, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not longing, nothing. "Sure," I said. "Sounds good." She kissed my cheek. "I'm glad. I know things have been rough, but we're good together, Evan. We just need to remember that." I nodded. She went to the bedroom, and I sat there with the Thai food cooling on the table. My phone buzzed. Jonas. "Graham's got a sponsor meeting next week, day before the gala. He's pitching Stanton on a new contract. If something went wrong there," I typed back, "let me know when and where." 3 dots. "You're playing with fire, man." I smiled at the screen. Good. My hand stayed calm. My blood didn't. The day before the gala, I volunteered to help with setup. Maris didn't ask me to, I offered, surprising her, showing up like a good, supportive partner who still cared about her big moment. Really, she'd said, suspicious, but pleased. You don't have to. I want to. Besides, I've got nothing else going on. The gala was being held at the Riverside Events Center, a renovated mill building with exposed brick, industrial lighting, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. The setup crew was already there when I arrived. Caterers arranging tables, florists building centerpieces, AV techs running cables, and Graham Ketter standing by his SUV in the parking garage, talking on his phone with the confidence of a man who'd never been challenged in his life. I watched him from across the lot. He wore designer jeans and a fitted Henley that probably cost more than my entire outfit. His hair was perfect. His posture screamed success. I waited until he finished his call. Then I walked over. Graham. He turned, and I watched his face cycle through recognition, confusion, and something close to amusement. Evan, right? Maris's boyfriend? The pause before boyfriend was deliberate. That's right, I said. Didn't expect to see you here. You helping with setup? Maris asked me to check on a few things. He nodded, still smiling. She's great, isn't she? Really been a lifesaver on these projects. Don't know what I'd do without her. I kept my voice even. Yeah, she's very helpful. Super helpful. He leaned against his SUV, relaxed, owning the space. You're lucky to have her. I know. We stood there for a moment, the air thick with things neither of us was saying. Then Graham's smile shifted, sharper. You know, man, no offense, but I always thought Maris was a little out of your league. Smart woman like that, doing big things. She needs someone who can keep up. I didn't respond. He pushed off the SUV and stepped closer. But hey, I get it. Sometimes people outgrow each other. No shame in that. You think she's outgrowing me? I think she's growing. Period. And sometimes that means leaving people behind. He clapped me on the shoulder, firm enough to be condescending, and started to walk past me toward the venue entrance. I let him take 3 steps. Then I said, How's the Stanton meeting going? He stopped, turned. What? You're meeting with Stanton Medical. Today, right? Pitching the expansion contract? His face went carefully blank. How do you know about that? Small town. People talk. That meeting's confidential. Is it? I tilted my head. Or is it just another thing Maris helped you arrange? Graham's jaw tightened. He walked back toward me, and I saw his whole demeanor shift. The friendly mask slipped. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the guy who pays attention. You need to back off. Whatever you think you know. I know you've been using Maris to get contracts. I know you've been meeting her in parking garages. I know she's been covering for you in ways that violate about 6 different hospital policies. His face went red. You're out of your mind. Am I? He stepped closer into my space, trying to intimidate. Listen to me very carefully. You don't know what you're talking about. And if you start spreading rumors, I'll make sure everyone knows you're just a jealous, paranoid ex who couldn't handle his girlfriend succeeding. I didn't move, didn't blink. You done? I asked. I'm serious, Evan. Stay out of this. Or what? He grabbed my arm, hard, aggressive. Or you'll regret it. And that's when I moved. Nothing dramatic. I just twisted my arm out of his grip, stepped in close, and put my hand flat against his chest. Then I walked forward, steady pressure, until his back hit the concrete pillar behind him. Don't touch me again, I said quietly. Graham's eyes went wide. Are you? I'm not threatening you. I'm making a promise. If you touch me again, if you come near me, if you even look at me wrong, I will make sure Stanton knows exactly what kind of man they're partnering with. You've got nothing. I've got phone records, timestamps, access logs, emails, and I've got Maris's own words contradicting your story. His breath came faster. You're bluffing. I leaned in close enough to smell his expensive cologne. Try me. Then I let him go and stepped back. He stood there, breathing hard, his face a mixture of anger and fear. "You're crazy," he said. "Maybe, but I'm also right." I turned and started walking toward the venue entrance. "Evan." I stopped, but didn't turn around. "This isn't over," Graham said. "Yes," I said. "It is." I walked through the service entrance and into the event center. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, but I kept my face calm, my steps steady. Inside, I found Maris talking to a caterer about table arrangements. "Hey," I said. She turned, surprised. "That was fast. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Just had a chat with Graham." Her face flickered. "Graham's here?" "He was. Don't think he'll be coming inside, though." "Why not?" "He seemed like he had somewhere else to be." Maris stared at me, and I watched her try to read what had just happened, but I gave her nothing. Just a smile. Just calm. "I'll be upstairs helping the AV crew," I said. "Call if you need me." I walked away before she could respond. Behind me, I heard her phone ring, and I knew, absolutely knew, it was Graham calling to tell her I was a problem. I smiled. Let him. She started acting like a wife again. That's how I knew she was guilty. I woke up to the smell of coffee and scrambled eggs. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Maris hadn't cooked breakfast in over a year, but there she was, standing in the kitchen in one of my old college t-shirts, humming something soft while she worked at the stove. "Morning," she said when I appeared in the doorway. Her smile was warm, genuine even. "I made your favorite." I looked at the eggs, the toast, the fresh orange juice in a glass that wasn't chipped. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just thought we should start today right." She set the plate down at the table. "Sit. Eat." I sat. The eggs were perfect. She'd even remembered I liked them slightly runny. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. I looked up. She sat down across from me, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "I've been terrible lately, distant, focused on work. I forgot what's really important." "And what's that?" "Us. You. This." She gestured at the space between us. "I don't want to lose this, Evan." I took a bite of toast. "What changed?" "Nothing changed, I just—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I realized how lucky I am, how much you do for me, for us, and I've been taking that for granted." I nodded slowly, said nothing. "Tonight's going to be amazing," she continued. "The gala. Everyone's going to be there, and I want you by my side. I want everyone to see us together, strong." "Sounds good." Her smile widened. "You're going to look so handsome in your suit. I can't wait." She reached across the table and touched my hand. Her skin was warm. I looked down at our hands and felt nothing. "I need to ask you something," she said. "About yesterday, at the venue." Here it comes, I thought. "What about it?" "Graham said you two had a conversation in the parking garage." "We did." "He said you seemed upset." I met her eyes. "Did he?" "He's worried. He thinks maybe you got the wrong idea about us working together, about our professional relationship." Professional relationship. The words tasted like ash. "I don't have any ideas," I said calmly. "Wrong or otherwise." "Good, because there's nothing to worry about. Graham's a colleague. That's all." "Okay?" She squeezed my hand. "Evan, I need you to trust me." I pulled my hand back gently. "I do." The lie came easily. She stood up and kissed the top of my head. "Wear the navy suit tonight. It brings out your eyes." Then she disappeared into the bedroom, and I sat there staring at my plate. My phone buzzed. Jonas. "Email sent. Stanton received it 7 minutes ago." I texted back. "And?" "No response yet, but Graham's meeting starts in 15 minutes. This should be interesting." Around noon, Jonas called. "You're not going to believe this." "Try me." Graham's meeting with Stanton just imploded. They confronted him about the email, asked for explanations. He couldn't provide any. They suspended negotiations pending an internal review. I closed my eyes. Good. That's not all. Stanton's legal team is requesting documentation from the hospital. They want to verify the claims in the email, which means the hospital's going to launch its own investigation. How long before that hits Maris? Depends on how fast their compliance office works. Could be days. Could be hours. Let's hope it's hours. Jonas paused. You really think this is going to work? It doesn't have to work perfectly. It just has to work enough. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. At 3 p.m., I got a text from Maris. Something came up at work. Might be a little late getting home. Don't worry, I'll be ready on time. I stared at the message. Translation. Graham called in a panic, and she's trying to manage the fallout. I didn't respond. Instead, I called the hospital's main line and asked for HR. This is Evan Slade. I'm a contractor with the IT security team. I'd like to report a potential policy violation. The woman on the other end sounded tired. What kind of violation? Conflict of interest. Personal relationship between a staff member and a vendor affecting contract decisions. Do you have documentation? I do. Can I send it to you? Send it to the compliance hotline. The email address is on the hospital website. Include your contact information and any evidence you have. Thank you. I hung up and sent the email. No dramatic accusations, no emotional rants, just facts, dates, times, names, policy references. Then I sat back and waited. Maris came home at 6. She looked stressed, hair slightly disheveled, makeup not quite perfect. Sorry I'm late, she said, dropping her bag. Crazy day. Everything okay? Fine, just some admin stuff. She forced a smile. Let me shower and change. We've got an hour. She disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the water start. I stood outside the door and listened to her cry. It wasn't loud, just quiet, muffled sobs mixed with the sound of the shower. I should have felt something. Guilt, maybe, or pity. But all I felt was that same cold clarity. At 7:30, we left for the gala. Maris wore a black dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Her makeup was flawless now. Her smile was back in place. You look beautiful, I said, because that's what I was supposed to say. Thank you. She adjusted my tie. We look good together. We drove in silence. The event center was lit up like a movie premiere. Spotlights sweeping the sky, valets in bow ties, guests arriving in designer clothes and forced elegance. Inside, the space had been transformed. String lights overhead, candles on every table, a jazz trio playing in the corner, waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Maris grabbed my hand. Table 7. Graham's sponsoring it, so we'll be sitting with him and some board members. Of course we were. We found the table. Graham was already there, looking pale but composed. He saw us coming and his jaw tightened. Maris, Evan. He stood, shook our hands like nothing was wrong. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Maris smiled at him, and I watched them exchange a look, quick, loaded with meaning. I sat down and accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Across the table, a woman in pearls leaned toward Graham. I heard your meeting with Stanton didn't go as planned. Graham's smile froze. Where did you hear that? Oh, you know how it is. Everyone talks in this town. He glanced at Maris, then at me. I raised my glass slightly. The evening had just begun. The threat text didn't scare me. It focused me. Around 10 p.m., Graham excused himself from the table. Need to step outside for a minute. Maris watched him go, then turned to me. I should check on the auction tables. Back in 5? Sure. She squeezed my shoulder and left. I waited exactly 30 seconds. Then I stood and walked out through the service entrance. The night was cold, Fog rolled in from the river, turning the street lights into soft halos. I found Graham standing by his car, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. I stayed in the shadows and listened. I don't know who sent it, but they know things. Details that shouldn't be public. A pause. No, I don't think Maris would. She has too much to lose. He hung up and slammed his fist against the hood of his car. I stepped back, turned, and walked to my own vehicle. 5 minutes later, Graham's Audi pulled out of the lot. He turned left, away from downtown. I followed. We drove for 20 minutes, out past the edge of town, where the streetlights end and the road narrows. He turned onto a gravel drive I recognized from Jonas's notes, the lake house. I parked a quarter-mile back and walked the rest of the way, staying in the tree line. The house was dark except for one light in the main room. Graham's car sat in the driveway, engine ticking as it cooled. Then a second set of headlights appeared, Maris's Lexus. She parked next to Graham's Audi and got out, moving fast. They met at the front door, and even from 50 yards away, I could see the tension in their bodies. They went inside. I circled around to the side of the house where the main window faced the lake. Through the glass, I saw them standing in the living room. Graham was pacing. Maris was trying to calm him down. Then I saw movement behind me. A car pulling up the drive. Not Graham's, not Maris's. A black sedan. I pressed myself against the side of the house and watched. A woman got out. Mid-30s, business suit, carrying a briefcase. She walked to the front door and knocked. Graham answered. The woman said something. He shook his head. She held up a document. They talked for maybe 3 minutes. Then she left. I waited until her taillights disappeared. Then I started back toward my car. Halfway down the road, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Talia Briggs stood there in the moonlight, arms crossed, looking remarkably calm for someone who'd just appeared out of nowhere. Hello, Evan. The person at my window wasn't a threat. She was an opportunity. Why are you following me? I asked. Talia smiled. I'm not following you. I'm following them, just like you. We were sitting in my car now, parked on a turnoff 1/2 mile from the lake house. She'd invited herself in, and I'd been too curious to refuse. What do you want? I said. Same thing you want, to watch them burn. Why would you want that? Maris is your friend. She laughed, cold and sharp. Friend, that's a generous word. Maris kept me around because I was useful. Event planning, social media, making her look good. But the second Graham showed up, I became disposable. So this is revenge? This is business. When Maris falls, there's going to be a vacuum. Someone needs to fill it. That someone should be me. I studied her face. What do you have? She pulled out her phone and showed me a folder of screenshots, emails, text conversations, calendar conflicts, expense reports that didn't add up. I've been documenting everything for 6 months, every time Maris lied about her schedule, every time Graham used hospital resources for personal meetings, every time they thought they were being clever. And you're giving this to me because you're going to do something with it. And when you do, I want to make sure I come out on top. What do you want from me? A recommendation, to the board, to the charity committee. When this is over, I want your endorsement that I'm the right person to take Maris's place. I leaned back. I don't have that kind of influence. You will. Once people see what you've uncovered, you'll be the guy who exposed corruption. That carries weight. I thought about it. Talia was calculating, opportunistic, probably as dangerous as Maris in her own way, but she had information I needed. Show me one thing first, I said. Proof that Maris used my name as cover. Talia scrolled through her phone and showed me an email. Subject: Vendor approval timeline. Evans review needed from Maris Vale to Graham Ketter. Evans reviewing the security protocols this week, so we have cover for the extended timeline. He won't ask questions. I stared at the screen. My name, my job, used as a shield for their affair. When was this sent? 3 weeks ago. I took a photo of it with my phone. We have a deal. Talia smiled. Good, because there's one more thing you need to know. What? Graham's married. The words landed like a brick through glass. Married. Separated, technically, but not divorced. His wife lives in Boston. She has no idea he's been sleeping with someone from the hospital. Does Maris know? She does now. I made sure of it. I looked at her. You told her? I dropped a hint. Let her put the pieces together herself, and now she's panicking. Talia gestured toward the lake house. That's why they're here, trying to figure out how to contain the damage. And the woman who just left? Graham's lawyer. He's trying to prepare for the fallout. I sat there processing it all. Then I asked, what happens next? Next, they turn on each other. Graham's going to blame Maris. Maris is going to blame Graham. And you're going to make sure everyone knows the truth before either of them can rewrite the story. She opened the car door to leave, then paused. One more thing, Evan. Tomorrow night at the storage facility. Riverside Self-Storage, Unit 23. Maris keeps gala supplies there. Graham has a key. They're meeting at 11. How do you know? Because I've been tracking them for months, and tonight I'm giving you front row seats. She got out and disappeared into the fog. I sat there for a long moment, then started the engine and drove home. I didn't need to frame anyone. They were already framing themselves. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, 12 from Maris, 3 from Graham, 2 from unknown numbers. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to the hospital's compliance office. Short, clinical, attached documentation, policy violations, dates, names, evidence. Then I hit send. My phone rang. Maris. I answered. Hey. Where have you been? I've been calling all morning. Phone was on silent. What's wrong? I need to see you. Now. Can you meet me at the Riverwalk? When? 20 minutes. Okay. I hung up and got dressed. She was waiting by the footbridge when I arrived. Same spot where I'd watched her meet Graham weeks ago. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. We need to talk, she said. No preamble, no pleasantries. About what? About what you did. The email, the complaints. You're trying to destroy me. I kept my voice neutral. I reported policy violations, that's all. That's all? Do you know what this means for me? I could lose my job, my career, everything I've worked for. You should have thought about that before you violated those policies. Her face twisted. I made a mistake, okay? I admit it, but you don't have to ruin my life over it. I'm not ruining anything. You did this to yourself. She grabbed my arm. Please, Evan, if you ever cared about me, stop this. I'm begging you. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. I did care about you. Past tense. She let go like I'd burned her. You're really going to do this? I already did it. Her expression shifted from pleading to cold. Fine. But you should know something. When the hospital investigates, I'm going to tell them you've been harassing me, stalking me, that you're unstable and obsessed. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Her voice. He's been so helpful with the renovation projects. Graham's voice. I don't think Maris would tell anyone. She has too much to lose. I stopped the playback. I was at the lake house last night. I heard everything. Her face went white. So if you want to tell the hospital I'm harassing you, go ahead, but I'll tell them the truth, and I have proof. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're insane, she whispered. No, I'm just done being quiet. She turned and walked away, her footsteps sharp on the pavement. I watched her go and felt nothing. The moment she lost control, she got dangerous. That evening, I drove to Riverside Self-Storage and parked across the street. At 11:05, Maris's Lexus pulled into the lot. She got out, looking around nervously, and walked to Unit 23. 5 minutes later, Graham's Audi arrived. I waited until they were both inside. Then I crossed the street and moved along the fence line until I was close enough to hear. "Can't believe you did this," Maris was saying. "I didn't do anything," Graham shot back. "Someone sent that email to Stanton. Someone who knows details they shouldn't." "Who?" "I don't know. But they knew timelines. Names. This wasn't random." "Did you tell them about us?" "Of course not, but they're asking questions. And if the hospital starts digging, then we bury it. We say it was professional correspondence only." "Maris, they have dates, timestamps. They're going to cross-reference everything." "Then we lie better." Graham laughed bitterly. "You lied to me about everything, even about us being exclusive." "What are you talking about?" "Talia told me something interesting, about you and Evan, how you're still living together, still playing house, using me." "That's not—" "Don't lie to me anymore. I'm done." Silence. Then Maris. "If you're done, then so am I." "Good." "Graham, wait." But he was already walking out. He stormed past my hiding spot, got in his car, and drove off with tires squealing. I stayed where I was and watched Maris stand alone in the storage unit, surrounded by boxes and the ruins of her carefully constructed world. Then I walked to the entrance and knocked on the open door. She spun around, saw me, and her face went through shock, anger, and finally something close to fear. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough." "You followed me. I wanted to see what you'd do when you thought nobody was watching." She stepped toward me. "Evan, please. We can still fix this. We can—" "No, we can't. This is over. Your job is over. Your relationship with Graham is over. Us? That's been over for months. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You did it. You lied. You cheated. You used me. And now you're facing the consequences." She lunged at me, and I caught her wrists. Not hard, just firm enough to stop her. "Let go of me." "Calm down." "Let go." I released her and stepped back. She stood there breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You've destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped protecting you from yourself." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard her collapse, sobbing. I didn't look back. In this town, one person's disappointment is a public execution. The next morning, Jonas called with news. Stanton pulled out completely, terminated all contracts with Graham, issued a public statement about maintaining ethical standards. That was fast. It gets better. The hospital launched a formal investigation into Maris's conduct. She's been placed on administrative leave pending review. When? This morning, effective immediately. I leaned back in my chair. What about Graham? He's trying to salvage something. Filed a counter-complaint claiming Maris acted alone. Says he was just following her guidance. Will it work? Doubtful. Too much evidence showing they were in this together. That afternoon, I got a call from Patricia Nguyen. Graham Ketter's wife filed for divorce, cited infidelity and fraud. She's requesting full disclosure of his business dealings. How'd she find out? Anonymous tip. Someone sent her detailed documentation. Interesting. Evan, did you? No, but I'm glad someone did. That evening, Maris called one last time. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. I know you don't believe me, but I am. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say? I don't know. Something. Anything. I don't hate you, Maris. I just don't feel anything for you anymore. She was silent for a long moment. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope you find yourself. I hung up. Remember the waiter waiting for me? Tonight the whole room waited for them. The final board meeting was held on a Thursday evening, public forum, open to hospital staff and stakeholders. I wasn't required to attend, but I went anyway. The meeting room was packed, standing room only. Everyone wanted to see how this ended. The board chair, a silver-haired man with the demeanor of someone who'd seen every scandal imaginable, called the meeting to order. "We're here to address recent events involving personnel conduct and vendor relationships." He outlined the findings, the investigation, the evidence, the violations. Then he announced the decisions. Ms. Maris Vale's termination has been upheld. She is barred from seeking future employment with any hospital-affiliated organization within our network. Murmurs rippled through the room. Mr. Graham Ketter's contracts have been permanently terminated. His company is blacklisted from bidding on future projects. More murmurs. We are implementing new disclosure requirements and oversight procedures to prevent similar situations. He paused, looking around the room. This was a failure at multiple levels. But it's also an opportunity to rebuild trust. The meeting continued, but I stopped listening. I looked around and saw Maris standing in the back corner, her face pale, her body rigid. Our eyes met. She didn't look away. Neither did I. And in that moment, I saw everything, the anger, the regret, the realization that she'd lost more than a job. She'd lost her identity, her place in this town, her carefully constructed image. She'd lost everything that mattered to her. I felt nothing. After the meeting, people approached me. Some offered sympathy. Some asked questions. I deflected and left as soon as I could. Outside, the night was cold and clear. The river reflected the lights of the town. Jonas was waiting by my car. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah, I think I am." "What now?" "Now I figure out what's next." "Any ideas?" "Not yet, but I'll find something." He clapped me on the shoulder. "You're tougher than I thought." I had a good teacher. I drove home that night and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Patricia Nguyen. "Divorce finalized. All assets divided per settlement agreement. You're officially free." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and walked out onto the balcony. The town stretched out below me, small, flawed, but mine. I thought about Maris, about Graham, about how easy it would be to be bitter. But I was tired of carrying weights that weren't mine. I pulled out my phone and opened a new message to Jonas. "Drinks tonight? I'm buying." His response came fast. "About time." I smiled and put the phone away. The morning was bright. The air was cold. The river sparkled in the distance. And somewhere in this town, Maris was waking up to the consequences of her choices. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd done what I needed to do, not out of revenge, though it looked like it from the outside, but out of something simpler: self-respect. The kind you can't buy or fake or perform for an audience. The kind you only get when you stop letting other people write your story. 2 weeks later, Talia called. "I got the position, Maris's old role. They made it official today." "Congratulations. I couldn't have done it without you." She paused. "Thank you, Evan." "You're welcome." "What about you? What are you doing next?" "I'm moving. Out of state. Fresh start." "Good for you. You deserve it." "So do you." We said goodbye, and I hung up. That afternoon, I packed the last of my things into my car. The apartment was empty now. All the furniture Maris had picked out was gone. All the decorations that were supposed to reflect who we are were packed away. It was just walls and floors and windows. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the empty space. Then I turned off the lights and walked out. On my way out of town, I stopped at Marcello's. Same restaurant, same menu, same exposed brick and Edison bulbs. I ordered coffee and sat by the window. The waiter appeared, the same young guy from that night months ago. "Just you today?" he asked. "Just me." He nodded and brought my coffee. I sat there watching people walk by, couples holding hands, friends laughing, strangers living their lives, and I realized something. I was okay, not healed, not whole, but okay. That was enough. I finished my coffee, left cash on the table, and walked out into the afternoon sun. My car was packed, my future was uncertain, my past was complicated. But for the first time in years, I felt light. I got in my car and started the engine, and I drove away from that town without looking back.